Have you ever wondered why altars hold such a significant place in our lives? Indeed, the concept of altars has been integral to human spiritual practice for centuries. Originating from the Hebrew word for table, an altar is more than just a physical structure. It is a space of communion, a place where we invite the Lord to sit with us and share in fellowship. Altars are deeply rooted in the biblical tradition. Great men of faith such as Abraham, Moses, and Jacob didn't just stumble upon their destinies, they actively sought to commune with God, establishing altars as sacred meeting places. Abraham built an altar in Hebron, inviting God's presence into his life. Moses, atop Mount Sinai, constructed an altar as a testament to God's deliverance of the Israelites. And Jacob, after his dream of angels ascending and descending a heavenly ladder, erected an altar, calling it Bethel, the house of God. These altars weren't just symbolic gestures, but served as tangible gateways to the divine. They were platforms of interaction where these men of faith could experience God's tangible presence, seek His wisdom, and offer their worship. In essence, an altar is a spiritual powerhouse, a conduit for divine encounters. But let's not forget, altars go beyond personal spiritual experiences. They also have a communal impact. Consider the altar in your home. It's not just a corner for prayer or a showcase for religious artifacts. It's a blessing for your household. It intercedes for you, fights for your home, even takes care of your needs. The altar speaks for you and your family, inviting divine intervention into your daily affairs. However, it's important to remember that not all altars serve the same purpose. Just as there are godly altars, there are also demonic altars that serve the kingdom of darkness. These perverted imitations seek to copy the divine, luring people into spiritual traps. Indeed, altars have a profound impact on our lives, but not all altars serve the same purpose. As we delve deeper into this topic, let's remember the importance of discernment in choosing the altars we build and the spiritual forces we invite into our lives. While godly altars are a source of blessing, there exists a dark side to this concept. Now, this might unsettle some, but it's important to understand that just as godly altars provide a divine connection, demonic altars, unfortunately, exist as a perversion of this sacred concept. The enemy, in its deceptive nature, mimics everything that God does, but with a malicious twist. Imagine a table. In the Hebrew understanding, an altar is akin to a table, a place where we sit and commune with the Lord. But what happens when this table, instead of being a place of divine fellowship, becomes a platform for demonic activity? That's precisely what a demonic altar is. A table set not for God, but for the enemy. These demonic altars serve as a portal for the spiritual world, just like godly altars. But instead of inviting God's presence, they beckon the forces of darkness. They're like a back door, a secret entrance, allowing demonic entities to infiltrate our realm. It's a disturbing thought, isn't it? Now you might be wondering, what's the effect of these demonic altars on our lives? Well, instead of blessings, they bring about pain and suffering. They create spiritual strongholds that hinder our relationship with God, causing chaos, confusion, and a host of other issues. They're essentially the antithesis of godly altars. But the enemy is crafty. These demonic altars aren't always obvious. They can be hidden in plain sight, masquerading as harmless habits or traditions. That's why it's crucial for us to exercise discernment, to distinguish between what's of God and what serves the enemy. Remember, the enemy is an imitator, a counterfeiter. It takes what is good, in this case the concept of an altar, and distorts it for its own nefarious purposes. And that's the dark side of altars, the sobering reality we must face. It's clear that while altars can be a source of blessing, they can also be a source of pain and suffering if they serve the enemy. But don't lose heart. In our next segment, we'll discuss how we can tear down these demonic altars and reclaim our spiritual spaces for God, so stay tuned. Demonic altars can have a negative impact on our lives, but what can we do about it? The answer is simple yet profound. We must tear them down. The enemy, in all his cunning, seeks to establish these altars. They are a perversion of God's divine design, a mockery of the holy table where we commune with the Lord. But just as these demonic altars are raised, so too can they be torn down. Let's delve a bit deeper into this. The enemy and his kingdom of darkness, they're copycats. They take what is sacred and twist it into something ungodly. The altar, in its original divine design, is a table where we, as children of God, sit and sup with the Lord. The enemy, however, wants us to pull up a chair at his table to partake in his deceitful feast. But here's the thing, we can't have it both ways. We can't dine with God and with demons. The two are diametrically opposed. It's like trying to mix oil and water. They simply don't blend. We have to make a choice. And in making that choice, we must actively reject the enemy's table, the demonic altars. Now, tearing down these altars isn't a passive act. It's not about just saying no to the enemy. It's about actively dismantling these structures, these footholds that the enemy has established in our lives. It's about reclaiming our lives for God, about re-establishing our connection with the Lord. Think about it this way. When we tear down a building, we don't just stop at the demolition. We clear away the rubble, we prepare the ground, and we lay the foundation for something new. Similarly, when we tear down these demonic altars, we're making room for godly altars, for a place where we can meet God and experience His tangible presence. It's not an easy task, but it's a necessary one. The enemy will resist, will try to maintain his foothold, but we are not alone in this battle. We have the King of Kings on our side, and with His strength, we can tear down these altars and reclaim our lives. So, how do we go about this? It begins with recognition. Recognizing the existence of these demonic altars in our lives. Once we've identified them, we can then begin the process of tearing them down. We reject the lies of the enemy. We reject his deceitful feast. And in its place, we establish a table for the Lord, an altar where we can commune with Him. Tearing down demonic altars is essential to reclaiming our lives from the enemy. It's about choosing God over the enemy, about choosing to dine at the Lord's table rather than the enemy's. Remember, we can't eat with God and eat with demons also. The choice is ours to make. Choose wisely. Now that we've torn down demonic altars, how do we build up godly ones? The process of building up godly altars is a beautiful journey of faith and devotion. It's not merely about the physical construction of a table or a place of prayer. It's about creating a sacred space in your heart and home, a place where you invite God's presence. Imagine an altar as a table that the Lord comes to sit with us and share with us. It's a place where we can't eat with God and dine with demons. It's a conscious choice we make to ensure that our communion is exclusively with God. Creating a godly altar starts with a willingness to meet God, to experience His tangible presence. It's about setting aside time and space in your life for communion with the divine. Remember, every great person of God in the Bible had an altar. Abraham, Moses, Jacob, they all had altars where they met the Lord. Building your altar could be as simple or as elaborate as you feel led to make it. It could be a dedicated room in your home or just a quiet corner. The important thing is that it becomes a place where you can focus on God, a place that facilitates your communion with Him. As you begin to spend time at your altar, you'll find that it starts to take on a life of its own. It becomes a blessing for your home, a source of peace and tranquility. It becomes a place where you can lay down your burdens and find rest in the presence of the Lord. But the power of an altar goes beyond just the personal. An altar also becomes an intercessor for you. It speaks for you, fights for you. If you have an altar in your home, it can even pay your bills because it is now working for the home, fighting for the home. An altar is also a portal for the spiritual. It is a gateway that allows God and His angels to move in our lives. It is a place where we can experience the supernatural, where we can see God's power at work. Yes, the enemy and his kingdom of darkness may also try to use altars as portals. That's why it's so important for us to build up godly altars, to ensure that our homes and lives are filled with God's presence and not the enemy's. Building up godly altars is not just about creating a physical space. It's about making a commitment to seek God, to invite Him into our lives, to create a place where we can commune with Him. It's about making a conscious choice to tear down the demonic altars and build up altars for the King of Kings. Building up godly altars is an important step towards inviting God's presence into our lives. What happens when we build up godly altars in our lives? The power of godly altars is immense and transcends our understanding. These altars become our personal sanctuaries, intimate spaces where we commune with the divine, where we feel the tangible presence of God. They become more than just physical structures or symbolic representations. They become spiritual portals. Just as a door serves as an entryway into a room, godly altars serve as gateways into the spiritual realm. They are bridges that connect us to the divine, allowing us to tap into God's infinite wisdom, love, and grace. When we pray at these altars, we open the door for God's blessings to flow into our lives. We invite His angels to guard and guide us. Now think of the profound men of faith in the Bible: Abraham, Moses, Jacob. These men didn't just build altars, they created divine meeting places. Each time they encountered God, they erected an altar, a testament to their experience, a beacon for God's presence. They understood that an altar was more than just a construction of stones, it was a spiritual conduit. When we build godly altars, they intercede for us. They speak for us in the spiritual realm, advocating for our needs, our desires, our dreams. They fight for us, standing as sentinels, guarding our homes and our hearts. They become blessings that permeate our lives, bringing peace, prosperity, and protection. They can even, in a manner of speaking, pay our bills because they work tirelessly for our well-being. So when we create these godly altars, we're not just building a structure, we're erecting a spiritual portal. We're inviting God and His angels to interact with us, to guide us, to bless us. We're creating a space for divine encounters, a space where heaven touches earth. Godly altars are indeed powerful tools serving as a bridge between us and the spiritual realm. We've discussed the importance of altars, the need to tear down demonic ones and build up godly ones, but why does it matter? As we've journeyed through this discourse, we've come to understand that altars are not just physical structures. They are spiritual meeting places where we commune with the supernatural. The enemy, in his cunning, has perverted the true essence of altars, transforming them into tables of darkness and deception. We've seen the dark side of altars, the perversion of the enemy. These demonic altars are platforms for the enemy to spread his influence, to seep into our lives. They are the tables where we unknowingly dine with darkness, creating a rift between us and the Lord. But we have the power to change this narrative. We can tear down these demonic altars, these tables of deception. We can take a stand, reclaim our spiritual spaces, and sever the ties with the enemy. We've also explored the importance of building up godly altars. These altars are tables of fellowship with the King of Kings. They are sacred spaces where we meet God, experience His tangible presence, and receive His divine blessings. They become a beacon of light in our homes, fighting for us, interceding for us, and even taking care of our needs. The men of God in the Bible understood this. Abraham, Moses, Jacob, they all had altars set up where they met the Lord. These altars were not just physical structures, they were spiritual gateways, portals through which they connected with the divine. Now you may wonder, why does it matter? Why should we choose godly altars over demonic ones? The answer lies in the power these altars hold. Godly altars are platforms of divine connection, of spiritual growth, and of blessings. They are tables where we dine with God, where we experience His love, His peace, and His presence. They are portals through which we receive divine revelations, divine guidance, and divine protection. On the other hand, demonic altars are platforms of deception, of spiritual decay, and of curses. They are tables where we dine with the enemy, where we are vulnerable to his attacks, his lies, and his influence. So choosing godly altars is not just about tearing down demonic altars. It's about choosing to live a life of blessings, a life of peace, and a life in the tangible presence of God. It's about choosing to dine with the King of Kings, to receive His divine blessings, and to experience His tangible presence in our lives. It's a choice each one of us has to make. Do we want to dine with God or with the enemy? Do we want to live in the light or in the darkness? Choosing godly altars is choosing a life of blessings, peace, and the tangible presence of God. It's time to tear down the demonic altars and build up the godly ones in our lives. Until next time, troops, pick up your cross and continue to fight the good fight. And remember, you have Christ on your side.
Gotta